Mama, welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and this podcast exists to help scholarly mamas like you to achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters most. Here, we're changing the overwhelm, juggle, struggle narrative around what it means to be a mama on an academic journey to one of empowerment, fulfillment, and purposeful success. So how do we successfully navigate these journeys? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Let's begin by saying yes to creating a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, because that's when we truly become purposefully whole. So get ready for the most non-traditional, unconventional, and revolutionary approach to PhD motherhood, because one thing I have learned over my many years of experience on this journey is that if you want something different, you have to do something different. But you must be brave enough to think differently first. So, Mama, are you in? Fabulous! Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Hey Mama, welcome back to the podcast. I've got an amazing guest episode for you this week. I met this person online and she has inspired me with her content. And actually, it's so funny how sometimes just having conversation with people and interacting and connecting with people can open different doors for you. And I was having a conversation about the podcast with another guest, a previous guest that has been on the show, Lynn from Researchers Lynn, and she suggested that this person would be a wonderful guest to have on the show. And so I reached out to her and she agreed to come on the podcast. And so I'm so happy to have today Dr. Nonhlanhla Dube, who refers to herself on TikTok as Dr. Noni. She is a university lecturer in operations management. She's also a wife and a mum, and she's got multiple degrees, including a PhD. And she creates content on TikTok and YouTube to share academic writing tips to help people find the happy in their writing. And this conversation, we tried to record this episode a few weeks before the recording that you're actually going to be listening to today. And for some unknown reason, my internet just decided to do its own thing. Wasn't working, we couldn't connect, couldn't record. And Dr. Noni was so kind to reschedule, and we managed to reschedule and managed to have this conversation, which was a lot longer than we expected it was going to be. But I think there's so many nuggets and so many little bits of wisdom in this episode that I don't want to take anything away from it. So I hope you enjoy listening. We talk about her academic journey, we talk about motherhood and academic life and PhD life, and we talk about the joy in writing and just share a few reflections on that. So I hope you enjoy the episode. There's so much to grasp and glean from this episode, so I hope you do. And if you enjoy it, please share it with another scholarly mama that you know. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode. So let's dive in. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next one. Happy listening. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I know this is like take 2 for us because we tried this before and it didn't quite work out the way we had intended. And so we had to rebook. And I'm so happy that we've finally been able to make this happen. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Noni. And like, just because obviously our listeners haven't gotten to know you yet, they haven't met you, could you start with giving us a brief introduction about you, get a little bit of background and what brought you to this stage of your journey?
Oh, that's going to be a long one then. Thank you, first of all, for having me and for trying again. I know with these things, usually we end up getting lost and then it just becomes a pipeline dream. So it's nice to finally sit with you. As you already said, I'm probably known for being present on the internet streets as of June last year, actually. And I have been on TikTok talking about academic writing and trying to get the next generation of scholars excited about it, because I believe in its utility, not just in terms of the sense of fulfillment, the joy it can bring to people who really properly engage with it, but because I think we're also at a point in history where we need all hands on deck in terms of knowledge creation for transforming our world for the better. So I have seen a lot of things on the internet as somebody who was just a bystander, happily living under a rock. And I have seen how it's misleading and potentially dangerous, especially the era of AI and how these AI tools are being tutored and sold to students. And that compelled me to be a counter voice, just to let people know, what you are being told is not it's not a view that is held by everyone who works in this space. In fact, it could be a minority view, if at all there are people who hold those views that are shared on the internet streets. And so, yeah, I got out from under that rock, and I'm trying to spread the joy with every TikTok that I make.
I love that. And, it kind of strikes me as reminding me of something else that I saw on Instagram, actually, with someone that I follow on there. And she was talking about just the love of learning, of knowledge, of just, I guess, intellect, and just really engaging in deep levels of understanding, and not being in it to publish, not being in it for the prestige, not being in it for the the recognition or the promotion or the fame or whatever, but really just a love of learning. And I really resonated with that, because for me, like, I love learning new things. I love immersing myself in just, the depth of understanding that you can get from academic work. And to hear somebody else saying that, and obviously you as well, just, the joy in writing, the joy in just learning and being immersed in this space, and being immersed in the pursuit of knowledge, I think it just resonates so much with me. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I'm so happy that you came from under that rock. You emerged from under that rock to the internet streets.
I'm doing okay so far. The worst things that I feared haven't happened yet. So knock on wood.
Yeah, no, I think it's important that we kind of take up that space as well. So you've had such a unique academic journey from Zimbabwe to the Netherlands and across multiple disciplines. So looking back, how do you think the early rejections that you might have experienced have shaped your resilience and the path that you eventually carved out for yourself?
I think really when people say rejection is redirection, I now tend to believe that. And I think also it helps you to develop the thick skin that you are going to need for this type of undertaking, let's say, because with academic writing and with being a researcher, rejection is a fact of life. At least once a year, I'm going to have an idea that I think is great and it's going to get shot down. A journal rejects it. A funding organization says it didn't actually quite meet the expectations. So this is the reality of our existence. We are facing rejection all the time. And having been rejected in the earlier years, I think one of the things that it actually did for me was give me the permission to carve out my path where one isn't already set for me. And it's not something that I pursue with any level of resentment whatsoever. I've actually, I think, reached a point where if I get rejected and I thought I was deserving, I tell myself, still lost. And it's not a form of arrogance, but it's a way of saying, I think I've grown into the realization of what I am worth. And I'm no longer going to live out my life trying to prove myself over and over and over again. So if someone looks at my track record, if someone has a conversation with me and they don't think I'm quite right for them, it's fine. And sometimes it's just not a fit. It's really nothing to do with what I am worth or not worth. Sometimes people don't click. Sometimes you don't meet the needs of people, whatever it is that they may be looking for. And I've become fine with that. And once I started doing that, I actually noticed that I became much more efficient. I am not going to hang around the door where I'm not welcome. I'm not going to repeatedly knock on doors where I know what the response is going to be. And if the trail, as I said, hasn't already been set for me, I am going to create my own. I'm not scared of that. And if I have to start multiple times over in this lifetime, I'm also okay with that. And that is absolutely liberating.
I love that. I love the thought of just carving your own path and defining your own journey. And, you know, rejection, like you said, is such a part of academic life, but also life in general. Like, you know, that you get no's, you go for job interviews, you get a no, you go for, you know, I don't know, some other opportunity and it's a no. And I think really it's about developing that attitude of resilience, but also what actually is your worth. You have to know what that is. You have to know, because if you're depending on other people to define your worth for you and you've got all these rejections, then you're not going to think much of yourself. It's about understanding, look, this is what I bring to the table. And if it doesn't suit, if you're not a good fit, that's fine. I'll go and make my own table.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that's what you've kind of done, really.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's also my hope for a lot of this younger generation, and it's also why I'm out doing what I do. When I started on TikTok, I thought I was just going to be telling people, you know, writing is important. This is what you need to do to write. But especially when I go live, I find myself spending a lot of time reassuring people, you can do it. You're more capable than you realize. You have to believe in yourself first, because there's no one out there who's that preoccupied with you and your insecurities. So we are at a time where we've never been more privileged, and yet we've never been so doubtful, if that's a word, of ourselves and our value. And maybe that's one of the consequences of not stating the obvious. You know, if you don't state the obvious for a long time, then it ceases to be obvious. My husband doesn't tell me he loves me for a few months, probably it stops to be obvious that he does. And maybe so we start to lose those things by just assuming it's known. We take it for granted. And yet it's such an important part of how we navigate life and how we think of ourselves as people in general.
That is so interesting. It's so interesting, actually. I recently wrote a grant application, and one of the bits of feedback, before I submitted it, I shared it with colleagues for feedback. And one of the bits of feedback that I got was, you're not selling yourself enough.
Yeah.
You are assuming, like, remember, these people don't know you. And if you don't write it down, they're not going to know. When they're going through their first cut, they're not going to know. They are only going to know what you have shared with them on that paper. And so it's your job to let them know what you are bringing to the table, to let them know what you offer. And that really resonated with me, because for that moment, when I think back about what I had written, I realized that I was really underselling myself. And this is a grant that is an investment in you as a person as well, like not just the project, not just the ideas, but you as a person. And I really realized that I was totally underselling myself. And it was only when someone pointed that out to me, because I guess, you know, sometimes you need that other perspective. Like when someone pointed it out to me, I reflected on it and I thought, actually, you're right. You're absolutely right. I haven't shared this. I haven't shared that. I haven't. And again, it's this, I guess, assumption that people know. They know. I don't need to say it. They know.
And as women, we tend to do it more than men in general. Though I was part of a panel today. There were 3 men and myself, and then our bios were read out. And as they were reading out the other bios, I realized, oh God, there's so much that I didn't say that I could have said. Like they had these long bios and they had all these achievements from the last 10 years. I just had a couple of sentences. This is who I am. This is what I do. And this is what I do in relation to this particular topic that brings me to this panel. So that was very interesting. And I start to see it more. And now whenever I talk to colleagues or even for myself, I say, when you've written something as a woman, get a guy to read it. And then it's probably going to help you to get it where it needs to be in terms of selling yourself than if you will just do it by yourself.
It's very interesting because actually the feedback I just shared with you came from a male, and that was really interesting. I didn't think about that before until you said that. So can you tell us about a pivotal moment, either academic or personal, when you seriously considered walking away, and what pulled you back in?
Oh, well, my PhD journey, I think, it's a very defining time of my life. And there may have been moments where I had doubts, but none hit so hard like during the pandemic. So I had a young baby. She was just over a year old at the time. We were in complete lockdown. Luckily, in the UK, I think a lot of the daycare centers stayed open. That was my only saving grace because we didn't have help whatsoever. But at this point, I had my academic job. I wasn't being paid to finish my PhD. We had to make a lot of adjustments in terms of teaching because suddenly we couldn't do it in the way we always had. We had to figure out the technology. But also, the pandemic was a great time for some people. And this is something that we rarely talk about. Some people, suddenly, they were publishing so much because they had all this time. They didn't have these many social connections and they could do a lot. But actually, my time shrank because I couldn't get help from friends and family with childcare outside of the preschool. If they had a single COVID case, we had to stay at home with them for, was it a week or two? But it was a really huge nightmare. And I remember at that time, I think by that point, I was somewhere at, would it be year 6 or 7 of my PhD, like really looking bad. And I was sitting in my office. I had just seen all the accomplishments of all the people, and I was kind of feeling salty about it. And I don't know what happened in that moment because I went from having the thought that, why am I bothering myself with this? I mean, I could just go, for example, back to industry. I could find a job. I'm sure somebody will be willing to take me. I worked in the humanitarian sector. By that point, I had a lot of connections and I had the relevant experience. It's like, yeah, if I give up, it shouldn't be such a problem. But then I realized, I think the first thing was that I was comparing myself to other people in ways that were not healthy. So when I looked at the list again, these people with accomplishments, their life situations had nothing to do with mine. I had a young child. I had an academic position, which was ridiculously privileged for somebody who was still finishing their PhD, right? People finish their PhDs, they get a postdoc, and then they have to wait sometimes forever for that academic position. I jumped from my PhD to an academic position before I had actually formally obtained the PhD. So I was thinking about the ridiculousness of it all and realizing, okay, my life circumstances are so different right now. And I'm actually coming across as very ungrateful because I do have a family to go back to at the end of the day, right? So while it feels like it's an inconvenience, I can't really do much else, but I am in company. I can be myself for an evening every night because I'm in the company of my people and there are things that I get to do. And so that moment was very interesting because it went from a lot of darkness and despair to a lot of light and newfound gratitude, I suppose, for the things that I had. And it's one of the things that I will remember. And at that point, I also remembered Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. Rule number 4 for me is the one that is important because it says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday
Oh,
and
love
not
that.
who someone else is today. Because we all have our own journey. We all have our own stuff going on. And later I would recall a colleague also saying to me, because I was complaining, but this was the time we could go out for coffee, for example. And they were saying, well, you're lucky you get to go back to a family at the end of the day. It's not something that I get to do. And so, yes, I did realize it was ridiculous. And I don't know how the light came on, but I'm ever so grateful for that moment.
Oh my goodness. If I could just like bottle all of what you just said, so many things to unpack there. First of all, congratulations that you got that job even before you're finishing your PhD. That is not
Thank
the
you.
usual pathway. So well done. But going back to this idea of comparing ourselves to people whose circumstances are polar opposite to what we are navigating. You know, navigating the PhD journey in the middle of the pandemic was tough. That was tough. I was in that boat as well. And childcare being very limited. Unfortunately, I was at risk because I was also pregnant as well. So I was really like nervous about, you know, him going to nursery and coming back and bringing things back. And my eldest son was off school. It was a wild time. It was a wild time, you know. I don't even know if to call what we were doing homeschooling. We were just trying to survive. Just trying to survive. And I remember just like what you just said, I remember so many people saying to me, oh, this is like brilliant. You've got so much time. There's so much you can get done. And I'm just thinking to myself, I can't get anything done. Like, this is a struggle for me. This is not golden time. Like, don't get me wrong. I was very grateful to be, like you said, in the company of my family, in a safe space. And, you know, I was very grateful for that. But it wasn't this golden, you know, writing time. It wasn't. Yeah. In fact, I actually had to make the tough decision to pause my PhD because I was so caught up with everything going on at home. And so
you needed your sanity, right?
Yeah. And also, like, you know, the world was shutting down or the world was shut down and I was in a vulnerable position being pregnant. And so I thought, you know what? I am not killing myself to maximize this time, you know, and get all this stuff done. I'm going to focus on my safety, my family, my kids, do what I can with my PhD. But, you know, at the end of the day, like, if that has to be put on hold, it has to be put on hold. It's not the end of the world. But this idea that, you know, people had that assumption that we had the time available to do all that work, not recognizing the challenge of navigating that circumstance as a mum. And what I found myself doing, just like you, was like comparing myself and feeling guilty and feeling terrible that I wasn't maximizing the time and I wasn't doing all the things because I was looking after my family. But I love what you said and how you reframe that into gratitude, you know, that you get to, not have to, you get to spend this time at home with your family, with people you love, people you trust, people you actually want to be around. Yeah. And you get to enjoy that every single evening. And, you know, you're not navigating a worldwide pandemic in loneliness, in isolation. And just, you know, shifting to that gratitude is so important. Making that shift just kind of transformed the whole experience for us. And we ended up writing children's books and doing things that now my kids can look back and say, yeah, we did that during the pandemic. And the other thing you said was around, oh my gosh, it's like it's gone from my brain. I just had it in my brain and it's gone. Oh no, Dr. Noni. But like so many important points made there. And I think, you know, even the whole idea of being tempted to give up on the PhD and, you know, kind of reeling yourself back in to say, actually, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I've got an academic position. Like, I'm incredibly privileged right now. And all it takes is for me to just, you know, get to the end of this. Yeah. And yeah, that giving you the motivation to just kind of keep going, keep pushing, finishing it, and navigating the post-PhD academic journey. And so I'm just trying to think about the fact that you have had a diverse experience. Obviously, yes, the academic position, yes, the PhD journey, but you have also co-founded and many of our listeners probably don't even know this, but you've also co-founded the Southern Women Academic Network, which is SWAN for short. And I'm just curious as to what inspired you to create that space and what role has community played in your academic and personal journey?
Oh, so Swan is not my baby. I just get to be part of the birth and the journey that is Swan. I have an amazing friend, and she called me a few years ago, and I can't remember if we were still in the pandemic or just before. And she says, I just had an idea in the shower. Her name is Gracious. I had an idea in the shower. What if we started something where we actually try to work with women who want to be in academia? She had just successfully finished her PhD. She started after me, she finished before me.
Oh, wow.
And I was still doing mine. It just was a never ending ordeal of sorts, in a way. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I talk to her, I give a few ideas. And I'm like, yeah, if you did this, it would be amazing. Just let me know if you need anything. This sounds like it's absolutely amazing. Then she goes away and she comes back having put together the stuff based on the conversation. And then she says, do you want to start it together with me? And I remember feeling very nervous about it. I was like, that's such a huge responsibility. I don't know if I have the capacity to do it. But she's a great friend. She's persuasive. So she got me to buy into the idea that okay, we can actually found something like that. But then what was Swan going to be? Initially we had thought, oh, this is going to be nice for women in Southern Africa. So we were actually SAWAF first, Southern African Women Academics Forum, because this was our geographical reach. We are both from Zimbabwe. She had done her PhD in South Africa, and we had envisioned a scenario where we meet in physical spaces. We do a lot of things in person. So yes, this must have been pre-pandemic. And then the pandemic hit, and we had our first writing session as one with just the two of us. She even took a picture. So we have a picture of the first ever writing session that Swan held, and it was me and Gracious. And then we just started selling the idea to other people, and we started really being able to craft what it was about. And in the end, we are able to say today, after having had to write through the pandemic and do a lot of things online anyway, we became more than a Southern African thing. We became an entity for all women of the Global South, in the Global South, of Global South origin. It doesn't matter where they sit in the world. But what we want to do is to make academia a viable career choice for women, because we know the stats are clear. From probably early grade up to some point in the undergraduate university, sometimes even the MSc, the girls are outperforming the men. But then we start to lose them in this academic pipeline. After masters, not that many participate in the PhD. After the PhD, not that many go on to actually take on an academic role, and even fewer actually make it to full professor. So why is that? If the girls are smarter, if they're able to do things, where are we losing them in this pipeline, and what sort of things can we do to actually make it viable for them? And I think one of the things that we both recognize, we're Southern women, we're both married, we both have kids, we both have lots of nephews and nieces and siblings. We love being the aunties. We love being mom. We love being the person that other people can depend on. And we don't want to be forced to sacrifice that in order to achieve academic success. Because at least for me, when I get older, it's not going to be my job and the accolades that are going to matter. Probably how my daughter remembers me, how my people remember me. I call them my peoples. But my peoples, how they think about me and how they remember me in those formative years when I could have done anything, I could have gone anywhere, and I chose them, or I chose whatever. So this became like the defining thing about Swan. And we are proud to say we do work really hard with people who do, in the end, find fulfillment in both their personal lives and also their academic careers. Our favorite story is a lady that we met. I think it was in the first year of Swan. And she had just found out she was pregnant, and she was in the last year of her PhD, and she was ready to give up. You know how bad the first trimester is. People don't talk about that. That's the time we need the most attention, and we cannot tell the soul. She was struggling, and she was thinking, no way I'm ever going to be able to do this. Maybe I should just quit because I'm not going to afford to pay. So we tried to invite her to our standard writing sessions. She was like, she wasn't keen to take it up. Then we made a special arrangement. We were like, okay, we will sit with you, just the three of us, and we're going to write. And we're going to start with short timelines because our writing sessions are usually 3 hours. And we will see what happens. And after 4 weeks, she was in. She was like, okay, let's roll sleeves up. Let's do this. And we did. And we worked with her, and she joined our bigger group. She became an active member of the group. And the day that she submitted her dissertation, she went into labor, and the next day she had her baby girl.
Oh,
So
wow.
she had her baby, she had her PhD, and it's amazing.
What a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I hope mamas listening to this will be inspired by that because, it does feel, I will say, there've been many, many nights when I have wanted to just throw in that towel as well. I think it's so common as a mama to be overwhelmed and thinking, why do I even need this PhD? This is stressing me out. I can just do better without this. And, it's lovely to hear stories of people who have made it through to the finish line, who've been able to see it through. And also, wear the mama hat as well, like doing both. Yeah. I think it's so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible.
Yeah. And we don't have to choose. This is the thing. This is what I'm learning and what I'm trying to practice for myself now.
Yeah.
Probably being stuck in the pandemic also, and having to do a lot of things, and also be a mom, not being able to delegate that to someone else. It really taught me the value of being present, just present in the moment. There was one time I really had this big deadline. I had to work. I had to get things done. And the preschool calls me and they say, oh, your daughter put something up her nose and we could remove it, but safety and regulations, we can't do anything. You're going to have to take her to the A&E. And I had to stop everything. And I was a bit frustrated. And then we sat there for more than 4 or 5 hours probably before we were seen. And then when they finally see us, they're like, oh, just put your finger over the nose, that's as free, and blow into her mouth. And the thing just flew out. And they said, next time do that. And I thought, I've been waiting 5 hours for this. Like, why didn't someone, but anyway. But then it taught me, okay, she's a kid. She will do things like that. She will get sick.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that I can do about it. I cannot control it. So I had to learn, if I have to be in 2 places, and obviously I can only be at one, I'm going to be fully present where I'm stuck, right?
Yeah.
If today I have to have a short day, I have to bring my daughter back home, I will make it one of the most amazing times for her. It's going to be a good memory for her, rather than be frustrated and showing that I still need to do things. So now I'm learning to say, okay, today we're shutting things down. Nothing that can be done about it. But also you can be sure that when I show up at work, I'm there 100%. Whether I have an hour or 2 or whatever it is, I am going to make full use of that time. So this has meant that, I can't remember the last time I had to work around dinner time. That's become a sacred time at our house. So from the time I pick her up from school to the time that I put her to bed, she will rarely see me working now.
Yeah.
I'm so present. And sometimes I'll try to get some work done. Sometimes she puts me to sleep. I go to say, I'm putting her to sleep. And then next thing I know, I'm waking up at 2 in the morning and my brain is like, you have all these things to do. And my body says, sorry, I'm parked for the night. I don't know how you're going to do that, but I am done. I'm not moving an inch. And after a while, I realize, okay, it's just a waste of time. So I just let myself sleep. Then we will start the day early. Nothing's lost.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I really wish that we were able to verbalize more and get better at, just that idea that whatever you do, the universe is going to turn as it does. There will be so much that's out of your control, but learning to respond in a calm and measured and strategic and thought through way is actually what's going to make the difference.
So true. So true. And I love when you said my body's just parked for the night. I'm going to keep saying that. I love that. I have experienced many of those parking nights. So talking about your daughter, tell our listeners about the moment you found out you were going to be a mum. What season of your academic life were you in, and how did it shift things for you both mentally and emotionally?
Oh, that's a very interesting question, because I found out I was pregnant, I think weeks after I arrived in the UK. I had just moved from the Netherlands and I had come for my job in the UK. So this is before I've even met, I don't know, the whole department, and I find out that I am pregnant.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, oh my God. I probably the first thought was that this is great, right? It's not like, oh, must be good. I think it's good. I mean, but now I just starting a job and I'm gonna have to announce that I'm pregnant. I have to go on maternity leave. And am I gonna be capable of taking care of this baby? But there was also a part of me that felt like I had this amazing little sister. She was like a baby whisperer. We trusted her with every kid. Like they stuck to her like glue. And unfortunately, just after we could tell everyone we were pregnant, we had done all the tests and everything looked good. So we informed the family. She suddenly passed away.
Oh,
And that was probably one of the worst things that I have experienced in my life. Part of it was because, yeah, I had thought she's just going to help me. We're going to make plans. She's going to, help me through whatever it is.
yeah.
But also, she was a mom. She was a single mom. And I had this guilt, like, she has a child about 8 years old at the time. I could have gone. Why not? So this was a very, very difficult thing to navigate. It became weird in terms of the pregnancy, and a lot of sorrow, I suppose, mixed also with that joy and expectation as well.
Yeah.
But I actually, now that I can think about it, it probably was the first few months were just a blur because I had so much to process. And it was probably only towards the end of the pregnancy that I could be like, oh, we have a baby coming. And when they start kicking and you can feel them and you're like, wow, this is really happening. That's probably the time that emotionally I could actually make that connection and
Yeah.
sort of give myself the permission to embrace this gift. Because again, it's not everyone who gets it. It's no guarantee for anyone at all. So
Yeah.
I again had to find the light in the situation and be grateful for what I still could have at the end of the day.
Gosh, that must have been so difficult, to be navigating so many other changes as well in the background, moving country, finding out you're pregnant, and then losing someone that you love. It's, it beyond words. I can't even find the words to describe how that must have been for you.
It's like someone makes you the most beautiful dress you've ever seen, and you're going to wear it to the ball. And then someone, whether it's that someone or it's someone else, I don't even know, they just teared it up in front of your eyes. And you're never going to wear that dress.
Gosh.
But you still must show up to the ball, right? So,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh, my heart breaks for you. And I'm only just hearing the story, so I can't imagine actually living that experience. It must have been really tough. And speaking of tough, academia, you were starting a new job. You had the PhD, like it was all happening. Academia can be all consuming on its own. And then you add parenting into the mix. What did those early days look like for you, trying to juggle motherhood and your academic work?
oh my God, I was tired all the time. All the time. You also know the first 2 years, essentially, of a baby's life, you really don't get much sleep as a mom.
No.
I had hoped that I could breastfeed until she was 2 years old. Was it? I got close enough. I didn't make it to 2 years, but I was proud that I reached a certain milestone. So that was difficult. I think what helped was that I already again made decisions about what was important and what I was going to pursue, but also being kind to myself in a way and saying, I'm going to do my best and we're going to see if it works out. So I was exclusively breastfeeding during that time. And I also had to do things. I could have just taken the bottle and it would have made life so much easier. But this was important to me. But also, I was in a job where I could actually go. So the preschool center of my daughter was just like across the road from my office. It's on campus. And they were like, yeah, you want to breastfeed, come in anytime. It's okay. And that was reassuring. So it was difficult, but I also remember a moment where I was talking to a student. They were an MBA student, so a bit of a mature student. And I had agreed to meet them over their assignment at a time that I was really spent. So I started that conversation by saying to her, if I seem a bit off, it's nothing about you or what we are discussing. I'm just so tired. And then I went through like the list. I have to take care of a child. I have to teach. I have to do these things and all of that. And then she said to me, you have to think of yourself as a helicopter pilot where it concerns your child, right? The safety of your child is going to depend on how well you are within yourself. You have to be alert. You have to be able to keep that thing on the air. You have to land it safely. You have to always have like the attention has to be always there. You have to be switched on. So she was like, yeah, I can understand all these things that you go through because, yeah, I'm also doing an MBA while I have a full-time job and all of that stuff. But make sure you are well enough to keep that helicopter in the air and to land it safely. Dr. Michelle, after that conversation that night, I was also home alone. My husband had traveled for an indefinite period because of lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
I fed her, I put her to bed, and I also went to sleep.
Yeah.
And I woke up when she woke up the next day. I felt so great. And from that day to now, I try to get enough sleep in the night to be able to do that because she was right. I noticed that I had reached a point where I was also becoming irritable, which is not good when you have a young child because, they're a child. There are things that you cannot communicate to them. There are things that their perception of the world is not that well developed. So you might find them sticking something in that plug or whatever. You're like, oh my God, And if you are in that stage, you can actually make a situation worse.
Yeah.
So I still have that thing in my mind, like whatever I do, I should be in the right frame of mind to look after a very vulnerable, precious person. And so this becomes the priority. And one of the things that I did shortly after that was browsing the internet. Sometimes I do these weird things just to be avoidant, That was my way. I used to like to go to this shopping website. It's an online shopping website where you can get premium brands heavily discounted. It's not like I swipe and save. Sometimes I add things in the shopping basket. In 20 minutes, they're gone. I never buy them, but I can spend hours there. I used to. It's something that I was able to get rid of. But then I saw that they had this sign that said, you can do everything. You can do anything, but not everything. And I stopped. I was like, I can do everything. Actually, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a very smart person. I have done a lot of impossible things. I started off as a mathematician. My first degree was in applied mathematics. I'm now a qualitative researcher. And I crossed over, as you said. I started off in the humanitarian sector. I became an academic. I can do anything, But I can't do everything because I have only 24 hours in a day. And those 24 hours I have to split across multiple responsibilities in my private and work life.
Yeah.
So I had to buy that. I bought it. And to this day, it's in my office. At one point, I had it right next to my computer. Like at the end of the day, when I have to leave because I have to pick my child up from childcare,
Yeah.
right? They at 6, they are done. You are 2 minutes late. They are upset. So it was like you have to be on top of that. And there were so many days where I had to stop before I was done. And that helped to calm me down. You know what? Today I didn't meet my targets, not because I'm incapable, but because I can only do so much in a day. So
Yeah.
we're going to leave today here. We're going to go home. We will redirect our efforts. I'm going to be fully present with my daughter. She's verbal at this point, just learning about her day and all those things and being able to pay attention. Because you blink and they're different and they're at a different phase and you don't know what happened, when and how and why. So I didn't want to miss that. So I still have that side. Now it's at my door. It's not in front of my computer. I don't need the constant reminder anymore. So I've graduated to a certain level.
Yeah.
But when I leave my office, it's one of the things that I see. You can
Yeah.
do anything, but not everything. So today we did our best. We try again tomorrow. That's it.
I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. Like if there was a mantra that I think every scholarly mama should have, even if they just write it on a piece of paper and stick it on their computer desk, it is you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. And I think one of the things that's really hard for us, I don't know if you've ever felt like this too, but one of the things that's really hard for us is admitting that we need help, admitting that actually we need some support. Like, it's okay. You haven't failed. You're not incapable, but this is just a lot to juggle. And
certainly, I think it's probably something that I see in all my friends who are overachievers. We are very bad at asking for help.
yeah,
We're very good at offering it, right? So right now it could be, Dr. Michelle, you have so much going on in your life at work, and a neighbor says, "Oh, I don't know, I have to attend this special event," and my kids, you're like, "Just bring them over." Oh, you bring them. Oh, sure, it's no problem.
yeah,
I have to look after my own anyway. You know, we're
yeah,
doing this all the time. But we wouldn't consider to go to that person and say, "Can you please look after my kids or my kid for just a little while?"
yeah,
But it's also, we do it with our partners a lot. I've had to learn to ask for things from my partner. I think part of it is that we think it should be obvious to them. It's not. And sometimes it's not even obvious to us, right? When I learned to verbalize my needs, I realized that I actually hadn't known my needs until I had to say them out.
yeah,
And now the way that I make asks of my partner, so I know it's not nice that every time at the last minute I'm like, "Can you get the kid from school?" You know, he did tell me it's not good, and it's a fair point. I also wouldn't want to be put in that situation. So I minimize those last minute asks. Like if
yeah,
I ask in the last minute now, he knows it's really, really, really urgent and it's nothing that I could have helped. But I also make tactical asks. I'm like, "Oh, this month it's going to be crazy at work. Can I please have you take charge of these things?" And then I'm just going to work around it, like being very specific. Like, I like to cook. I like my cooking better than his. But I've reached a point where I'm like, you know what? If it's cooked and I can eat it and it stays down, it's fine, right? It's not how I would have prepared it, but it's healthy enough. It's good enough. No
yeah,
one's getting sick from it. This is it. So I'm also learning, and I'm telling my friends all the time, you take the help you can get.
yeah,
You don't get the help that you want. You don't ask someone to look after your child and give them a list of how you would do things, right? So my daughter is at my sister's house now because I'm having a crazy week. And I didn't send her with an instruction manual. And I know some things are not going to go as well as I would do them.
yeah,
but they have all the best intentions. She's going to have the best time. And I've learned that she will reset. She knows,
Yeah.
at my sister's house, she can be a different person. She can get away with some things. In this house, the rules of this house rule, and we are going to switch back to those rules.
Yeah.
So it's fine. So with my partner also, I make these tactical asks now, but I also make strategic asks. So my first strategic ask was, I really need to finish this PhD this year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to ask you for most of this year to please bear with me. I'm going to do the long hours when I need to. And this is what, and it made life so much easier
Because you've set
for
those expectations,
everyone.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the first few times you do it, it's so uncomfortable and it makes you feel so weird. But then after a while, you realize it's actually good for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like, writing a rough draft and getting feedback. It feels vulnerable. It feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But once you get that feedback and you're able to incorporate that into whatever it is that you're doing, you realize that it was better. It was better. It was a good thing to get that feedback. And so, yeah, doing these uncomfortable things, stepping out of our comfort zones, asking for help, recognizing that we're not failures because we've asked for help. We're not failures because we didn't get everything ticked off of our list for that day. It's just a lot that we're juggling. And like you said, you can do anything, but you cannot do everything. And I would even add to that, by yourself. Like you
For
need help.
sure. It takes a village for any undertaking,
So
in the
true.
same way that as women, as moms, people depend on us a lot.
Yeah.
We have to learn to depend on other people.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how do we survive? Just piling things on ourselves and taking on everything and never putting it down. It feels so good sometimes to just say, I'm going to put this down. I told you my daughter is away. I feel so weird. I'm not used to not having her around, but she's having a blast. She's being exposed to the love of other family. And I think also given the losses that I've suffered in my life, what's to say I'm gonna see her grow into adulthood. And it's something that I now do like with a lot of intent. I don't plan on dying anytime soon, but who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if something were to happen to me, I want her to know the people that love her. And I wanted to have a basis for a relationship in my absence. And so some of these things, it's like, yeah, it's me getting help, but it's more than that. It's getting her to know she has a whole bunch of peoples. It's not just me. And yeah, sometimes it makes me feel a bit jealous, but I think it's good.
That's a really good point, though. Really good point there. Yeah. So speaking about how we've got to step out of our comfort zones and things, motherhood can completely shift our sense of self. So how did becoming a mama change the way you saw your work, your purpose, and even success?
I think actually I became more risk averse when I became a mom. Before I was a mom, I was your oblada kind of person. It's like, whatever, life happens. It's like, don't worry, be happy kind of thing. It's like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to be next year. It's fine. We will figure it out. Then I became a mom and it was like, I can't figure out next year what I'm going to feed her next year. I'm going to need to know that I'm going to be able to feed her next year. And that was a game changer, but it's not in a negative way because I think I like to say, actually, motherhood helped me to discover the superpowers that I didn't know I had. It's really almost like, these Marvel films where people think they're ordinary and they're okay, and then things start happening to them and they don't know what the heck is going on. I never knew I could have laser focus. I never knew that I could actually be able to use whatever time is available to produce something great. I always felt like I was a time hoarder before I became a mom. I just collect all this time for no real reason, and we don't know but it feels like I need that time, and I don't know. But now it's like, okay, let's make every moment count. When I drop her off at school at 9 and I have to pick her up if she has after school club at 6,
Mm-hmm.
I have to make that window count because I'm probably depleted after that time and I'm going to have to do other things. But then it also became the fact that, yeah, so now I really, really have to get things done. I'm still a hopeless planner, Dr. Michelle. I can't plan. Do not rely on me for anything that has to do with planning. But I have found ways around it. Like, okay, I have, that's a conversation for a whole other day, but like now how I get things done, I have what I call a contact tracker. It's not a plan, it's just a tracker. I keep track of my activities. I know where my time went this week. And after a couple of weeks, I get a sense of what are the things that I'm spending more time on and where am I headed with those things. And then I maintain what I call, these are the main projects I'm working on. Then I have what I call the back burner projects. So if, for example, I have a paper and it's out with collaborators, I pick the stuff on the back burner and I do something with it.
Yeah.
And then when a paper is submitted to a journal, a back burner one becomes a main one. And I pick something from the parking lot and put it into the back burner. But I'm not planning. I'm just tracking the content because I cannot do it. I couldn't do it to save my life. So I think it really helped me to find those superpowers to be able to do more with less. And in the end, it turns out we don't need much. So one of the things that I now also recommend to anyone, whether they're doing a dissertation, whether you're a mom, whatever, actually, do you know how much time you can spend working in a productive way in a day? Because I can tell you, Dr. Michelle, I need typically 200 minutes to write every day, to write. So I'm not counting the reading of the articles or attending to emails. 200 minutes to write. That's less than 4 hours.
Yeah.
And before I realized this, I was always feeling stressed. I was always feeling like I was running out of time. Come on, if cognitively at 4 hours I'm done, if I have used those 4 hours wisely, then the rest of the day, it's up to me what I do with it, right? And I actually became much more productive because I know this is my typical threshold.
Yeah.
And anything I do after that is extra. But I also learned that if I push it too far, I'm going to go through it deep for the next days. So I'm now learning to manage this trade-off. I can. Towards deadlines, ask me to work 8 hours straight writing. I can focus. I can do it. But maybe after 3 days or so, I'm going to lose back 3 days or so. My brain's going to be like, I'm sorry, I don't know who you think you are, but I am not about to lift a finger. I'm not about to do anything because you just put me on overtime and I need my resting time back.
Yeah.
So this has been nice. I think it helped me to learn a lot of things about myself, about my patterns, about my limits. And I'm happier as a result.
I love that though. I love that you've got that insight. Like many people don't have that. Many people don't really know like their when they've got their peak productivity or the limits to how many hours they can work in a day. I think a lot of us are so used to kind of just, you know, like you said, being time hoarders and just thinking you need this whole day. And actually I was like that before becoming a mum as well. I needed weeks. I needed weeks and just big chunks and blocks of time to just procrastinate through. But
Once you become a mom, that's not happening.
Once you become a mom, like you don't have that.
From the sky onto your lap and say, "Here I am." So,
yes. And it was so interesting because that was actually because I was working when I was doing my PhD. I was in an office with. Majority of them were not mums. In fact, I think I was the only mum in the office. And what I would notice is that time hoarding, like they would just have, you know, they would be there early, they would leave late. In terms of productivity, I'm not actually sure how much was actually happening, but they were there the whole day. And I had to clock out and get to my sons. Like I had to go. I had no time to kind of like hang around. I was very, you know, regimented in terms of when I had to leave. Yeah. And part of that was because I just didn't have that amount of time available. But again, it's this idea of like, do you actually need all that time? When you are a mom, you realize that your capacity really increases. So you are able to do more things But it's not because you're spending more time, it's because you're becoming more effective, more efficient with the time that you do have.
Yeah.
So in terms of, we talked about your support system, you mentioned your husband and also your sister. What, tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us a little bit more about the support system that helped you to navigate your academic motherhood journeys to this point.
Yes. So the people in your life are going to be important. And I mean, they come in all forms, right? So in this case, yes, I have a sister who has a family, my nephews and nieces. They help also with looking after my daughter, sometimes even looking after me. Sometimes I need looking after. And I think this is such an important thing that until I had a conversation with you, actually, I hadn't given it much thought. But sometimes I realize that I don't talk about my husband so much that people don't realize he's there. Right?
Yeah.
I once had this embarrassing situation of somebody that they saw me around on campus, and we just struck a conversation, and they were always saying, "We should go for coffee. We should go for coffee. You should give me your number." And I thought, why not? We do that. And of course, they know I have a daughter because they're running into me on campus with my daughter. And then we finally go for that coffee date. It turns out was a date. And they're like, "Oh, so how does it feel to be a single mom and working this kind of job?" I say, "I'm not a single mom.
Oh my goodness.
I'm very much married. Yeah, my ring is on the wrong finger now because I gained weight and somehow it just fit better on the right hand. But no, I'm very married. That was the last time that I spoke to them or got invited for a coffee. So that was interesting, but it's like a lesson in. No, I think he's. If I think about my husband, he's a quiet, reassuring, constant presence. Almost to a point that I just assume he's going to be there. I just made plans now to do a research trip in July. And only after I had spoken to people and put dates in the calendar, I got home to him and I said, "You know what? You might be alone for 2 weeks in July." He's like, "Okay, which dates?" And I have seen situations where people explode because these decisions are made without their involvement. So I think that this has been very, very helpful, especially as, again, a global southerner, because you will also hear a lot of stories about men that are intimidated. And actually, this is what I come across a lot. I've met women who say, "How do you deal with insecure husbands?" Because part of the reasons that our careers never took off was because they were feeling threatened, and we had to sort of, shrink so that they wouldn't feel that intimidated. So he's somebody that I'm extremely grateful for. I mean, he didn't know what a PhD was, but the poor man, bless him, he sat through it. And where I was having my breakdowns or, meltdowns, he was there. He was like, "Okay, it can be done. What do you need from me?" And that makes a world of difference. But I think also for me, the people that I cannot forget, and I would have to mention my PhD supervisors, these were fantastic people. And now, again, because I'm on the internet streets and I hear stories, horror stories mostly, about supervisors, sometimes I just want to reach out to them and say, "You know what? Thank you so much," because they let me be myself and they never put undue pressure on me. I remember that after I finally graduated, the day after my PhD graduation, I was having lunch with one of them. And I asked him, "Is there a point that you ever thought I'm never going to finish?" And he said, "Well, you know what? Every year since the time that you left, this would have been in 2018, and this was now 2022. Registry was contacting me and asking, should we keep this person registered?" Every year, my answer was the same, yes, because I knew when you were ready, you were going to finish. So he had to do it for 4 years. He never said to me, "Registry called again. So what is happening with you? Are you going to do this or not?" Never. So they understood who I was. They let me be myself. They also made it feel so normal to me that I was a mother and my priorities were changing. One of my supervisors actually had that conversation with me when I formally announced that I was pregnant. He was like, "Yeah, your life is about to change and it's okay. Just know that some things in life are more important than work." and just take care of yourself makes such a huge difference. And then finally, the employer that took me before my PhD was done, I lived through a few HODs, heads of department.
Yeah.
They were all amazing. I remember one of them used to say, just do what you need to do. I'll keep HR off your back.
Oh,
And
wow.
they delivered on that promise. So I think having people that had that unshakable faith in me
Yeah.
was very useful during those dark times, because there are those times where there are places only you can go and they're in your mind. It's not like other people can see or they have any insight, and it's a scary place and you don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just having those people there, I like this biblical reference of the Holy of Holies, where the priests used to go by themselves.
Yeah.
No one else could go, but they also had people around that court, and they had a string and that was tied to their foot, and they would listen for the bell. So every time they were moving, they're like, okay, it's fine. But if the bell stopped ringing, they had to make sure, like, okay, are we dragging them out? You need those kinds of people around you that are
Yeah.
going to pull you out of that dark place, that are going to help you to see there's more to life than this. And actually, the day I decided what's a PhD in the grand scheme of things, that was the day that I got on track with my PhD and reconnected with the reason for doing it in the first place. And I could work on it and get to the finish line. So you need people, you need a community around you, and you never know what those people are going to look like. So you have to get better also at accepting that help and crying out for help sometimes, which is very difficult,
Yeah.
but you have to do it.
Yeah. Oh, that is so beautiful, from the unwavering support of your husband to the level of, understanding from your supervisors and even the employer as well. Like, you were brand new and they were so supportive. And I think we often underestimate the value of that village of support. And I always say there's no sort of like self-made success stories. Like, people,
No,
if you see people doing well, that there's support behind that person. There's there people and systems propping them up and keeping them, at the level that you are seeing. And so, I can relate to all of that. I'm so grateful for my PhD supervisors. Oh my goodness, like, there's no way I could have done it without them. My
yeah,
husband, oh my goodness, my husband, there's just no way. There's just no way I could have even thought or considered doing this without him. And just like he doesn't have a PhD. He's never done a PhD, but he just was such a pillar of support for me
yeah,
through that, and just a safe space for me. Like you said, when you're in these dark moments of despair and thinking like, what on earth have I gotten myself into, to just kind of pull you out of that. Like, there's no way that we could have done these PhDs without them. There's just no way. I am so grateful. We give thanks. We give so much thanks. um, so thinking about the inspiration, you mentioned about the reason why, like your why behind your PhD, and your daughter, sounds like she was such a big part of that, such a big inspiration. Share with our listeners how your daughter inspires or grounds you in your research academic life. And was there ever a moment where she brought you right back to your why?
well, I think the biggest thing, and many of us will experience it, when you become a parent, you want to set a good example for them. How can you tell your child anything is possible and you just gave up on this one thing, right? And not that giving up is bad. Sometimes actually giving up takes a lot of strength and courage, like accepting that this is going nowhere and being able to leave that. That's probably an even more important lesson for our children than you can do anything lesson, because sometimes it actually takes them on the wrong path. But all of this to say, yeah, she brought back that spark in me, like, okay, if I were to tell her something in the future about perseverance, I think this would be the good example But what I also find very interesting about my daughter is that to her, I'm just mom. We go through these things sometimes, like, oh, she's learning how to count now, multiply, add. And if I have an argument with her, she's like, it's fine, I'm going to ask dad. And I say, hey, Papa, in fact, she calls him, I'm going to ask Papa. And I'm like, I'm a mathematician, I'm a scientist. She's like, yeah, I'm just going to ask Papa, and it ends there. And it used to be upsetting for me, but now I actually think it's a win if at the end of the day, in her eyes, I'm just mom.
Yeah.
Because that's what I should be to her first and foremost. And I'm sure one day she will grow up and she will learn about the things that I do out in the world. And maybe she will be proud of me, but I will still be mom, you know? And it's such, then that identity becomes something that's very sacred, and how we navigate it between us becomes such an important thing. So I still go and I conquer, I slay dragons by day, and I come back home and I'm just mom. And I can be just mom.
Love that.
And this is something that I think I find to be amazing about her, that she has taught me a lot. Again, I was talking earlier about just being present.
Yeah.
We are here and now we are present. And I make such special time. So our ritual every evening is that when she's done, she's brushed her teeth, I'm supposed to tuck her in, right?
Yeah.
Although
Yeah.
sometimes she ends up putting me to sleep. But then we talk about her day. How was your day? And she has these multivitamin gummies. So if she's had a good day, she's going to take a yellow one. If she's had a bad day, she's going to take a red one. And I see her journey emotionally, because there was a time when if there was this one bad thing that happened, then everything's all red, It
Yeah.
had to be all or nothing. And now she can think about it and say, oh, this thing was bad and it made me feel this way. But you know what? Something good came out of it. Or I don't know, it was still a good day because this was something and it was better and I could focus on it. So I'm picking yellow. She can't have both. And this is also learning, this is also teaching me to also check in with my own feelings. Like, how was my day? How did things go? What would be different about tomorrow? What sort of things can I actually do differently tomorrow that I didn't do today? What am I still grateful for at the end of the day? So this gummies business is becoming really difficult because she usually goes through the yells, and we had a whole bunch of that, that laughed, and I'm like, so am I supposed to find, I don't know, at what ratio? So most times we end up saying, okay, we're just going to finish the reds and then we will start something else. But it's been amazing. It's taught me a lot. I don't think I would be that reflective on the day to day if it wasn't for her. And yet it's made such a huge difference. Now I decide how I'm going to handle the situation before I walk into it. I can say, whatever some idiot does, I don't know, on the bus, I'm not going to get angry.
Yeah.
That's what I will do. It doesn't matter what they do. It's getting so much harder to get under my skin now,
Yeah.
and it's made me a happier person. I'm calmer.
That's so beautiful. Like, honestly, like our kids teach us so much about ourselves. And I think one of the most beautiful things about motherhood is, of course, like what we can give to our kids and how we can connect with them, but also what they can teach us, and what we learn about ourselves through that journey is so beautiful. And so, thinking about all things beautiful and joyful, you like to bring joy to writing. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So you mentioned wanting to help people find happy in academic writing. So what does happy academic writing look like for you, and how do you share this with others, especially early career researchers or PhD students?
So I think one of the things that I hope for people to understand is the appreciation of the complexity of it all. I just recently was able to find a definition of academic writing, and the way that I define it is that academic writing is the medium through which we think about very complex problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are not easy. If they were easy, then anybody can solve them. And if this is a medium for thinking, it's not an expression of thought, which is what people tend to think, right? They're like, oh, I'm thinking what my dissertation is going to be and what argument I will make, and then I will write it down. No, 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 no. You have to write and you have to sort through a lot of tangled thoughts before you can get to the clarity that you can then convey to other people. And getting people to see that this is a journey, it's like being the main star in a thriller. You don't know what's around the corner. You get the adrenaline rush. You get nervous sometimes, and you're right at the center of it. And it's so fascinating when you start to understand this is actually very normal. Every adventure, I'm going to have some level of anxiety, and that anxiety is good. I have a video on YouTube, for example, where I talk about the things that are weird about academia that they never tell us. And one of them is that many of us really, we tend to be perfectionists in recovery. We like things perfect, but we will never get them perfect because academic writing or academic knowledge is such that we are always trying to get it better. So I will develop it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to have to leave it there. And somebody's going to have to pick it up and make it better until we get to probably the highest level of knowledge that we can achieve. But whether we've hit it, we never know it. I've been very interested in this information that's been coming out, and I've been trying to follow it up, that what we thought is the ocean floor is actually not the ocean floor, that
Oh,
we
wow.
haven't actually really begun to understand what is happening in the depths of the sea. And part of it, I think, when they explained it, is that the tools that they were using earlier to scan the floors, right, were like looking at it as something that is flat. But in the same way that on Earth we have mountains and those mountain peaks, if you're looking from high above and you don't have high enough resolution, you might see the mountain peaks as where the Earth ends. But
Yeah.
actually, there could be more to it, which is what we have on Earth. And that's probably what they have with the ocean. So do we need a new name for ocean floor? What are they going to do with it? It gets very exciting. But we are
Yeah.
never done learning. And what we have to do, I think, also ideally, because if the world worked right, we would have to be publicly funded to do the research that we do. And I think it should serve a public purpose, right? So I study humanitarian supply chains. I hope that I hope that people who are affected by conflict or displacement will be able to have some form of existence and be able to graduate from that level of being dependent to being emancipated and free to live just like any of us would. And for you to be able to do that, it's such a huge responsibility, right? Think about people who also trial medicines. It's a huge responsibility. If there are things that you miss or there are things that you hide, you could wipe out people by the millions. It's a scary thought. So if people could understand that and embrace it and understand what its value is in the grand scheme of things, it's sad that we have reduced education to a paycheck. Oh, you do this, this is what you're going to earn, this is the type of job that you're going to get. It should be just context for people who have committed to being lifelong learners, who will always be curious and always pushing those boundaries of knowledge and asking if things can be better. So you get better at academic writing, you get better at thinking, you get better at problem solving. And we need more people like that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And this goes back to what we started with. We were talking about the love of pursuing knowledge and understanding and seeing ourselves as, just go back to that kind of ocean analogy, seeing ourselves as making a contribution to a greater good here. Like the tiny bit, I joke with my sons all the time, and I always say to them, when you've got a PhD, you know a whole lot about very little. And it's this idea of, what you are doing is making a contribution. You're making a contribution to a greater school of thought that will be built upon, that will be, develop further. And that's okay. Like, you are not here to kind of solve every world problem. Like, you are here to make a contribution to knowledge in a specific area. And for us, like, just embracing that as the outcome, like that can just be the outcome, that actually we are developing, theories and thoughts that maybe went before us, and this is as far as we can get with it. Going back to your analogy about you can do everything and anything and not everything, this is as far as we're going to get with this, and that's fine. I remember when I started my PhD, I was having a conversation with my supervisors, and they were like, Michelle, you don't have to, this is not the world you're trying to like solve every problem in the world. Like, it's okay to not have a world record or have some kind of Nobel Prize. You're not trying, that's not the aim. That's not the goal. The goal is for you to be curious about a specific problem. We go about that through using research methods, and you develop, you make some contribution to the development of that theory, that thought, that area. And that's okay, because there are other researchers out there who will build upon that. And you can even maybe, post PhD may build upon that. So I think, we have lost the joy. I'm going to use your wording here. We've lost the joy and the purpose and the point of what we're actually trying to do in the PhD journey. And for us to kind of come back to that is acknowledging that it may be a drop in the ocean, but it's a significant drop in the ocean because you are making a valuable contribution to knowledge. And that's okay. And that's exciting. That's joyful in itself.
Yeah, I will even push it further and say PhD, what it really is a journey to yourself.
Yeah. Oh,
the
yes.
qualification is just the context.
Yeah.
Your PhD is just the context for finding yourself.
Oh,
you
I
will
love
learn
that.
things about yourself that you will be disgusted by. You're like, ooh, I'm capable of envy. Me, humble, good old me, and you will find, but it's like, if you get out at the other side of it, you will be transformed in ways that I cannot even begin to describe.
Yeah.
You're going to have to get there yourself.
Yeah.
And I always say to PhD students, it's not about getting there fast. It's about getting there right.
Yes.
I took 8 years, and yes, I was ridiculously privileged. Yeah? I was privileged. I could afford to do it in a sense, but I never say that with any sense of being apologetic or regretful, because I met myself. I sat so long at those foundations, Dr. Michelle, that the transformation, it was like changing from a caterpillar to a butterfly. I was in that cocoon and no one saw anything. And then when I emerged as a butterfly, people were like, oh, suddenly Dr. Noni is doing that. No. It's not sudden.
Yeah.
No, it was 8 freaking years.
Yeah.
And those 8 years, I met myself. I found the things that are important. I learned what I'm able to convey to other people now. So because I'm on the internet streets now, for example, I see people who have PhDs and they're using their doctor title to sell AI tools. I'm sorry, and it blows my mind. But then the other day I was thinking about it and I thought, okay, so maybe they did a PhD, maybe it was 3 or 4 years. They didn't stay on in academia. Then I suppose they can be forgiven for not really understanding like why this is so important and why you almost cannot afford actually to have this. It's not even a neutral position, because in some way they're actually really pushing these tools to unsuspecting students. And so, yeah, I'm proud that I spent enough time at the foundations to even have the foresight to know what happens with these tools. One of my first videos that I made on YouTube was talking about what I called intellectual doping. So, like comparing the use of AI tools in the wrong way to doping in the way that people in elite sports would, and that it would have a major impact on our ability to think critically.
Yeah.
About a year on, research starts to emerge that shows a clear link between over-reliance on AI tools and the demise of critical thinking.
Yeah, I could believe
I
that.
didn't have to have research to be able to formulate that theory. Why? I spent enough time at the foundations to have the foresight. And so that's what I hope, a lot of people will get. The qualification, yes, it's almost a given. I feel like I even had my PhD before I got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was even publishing, not for my PhD, but for the other research projects that I got involved in. And that also helped me to grow in some ways, but it also humbled me a lot.
Yeah.
Oh my God, things can happen out there. I'm probably the last person to judge anyone getting stuck there. And I know how incredibly, ridiculously blessed I've been to still get out with the PhD in hand and having met myself and being happy with this newfound me. I know what stuff I'm made of.
Yeah. Oh,
And
my
that's
goodness.
an important thing.
Honestly, like, I love that a PhD journey is a journey to yourself. And, I talk a lot about like journeys of becoming, and the reason why I do, and this could apply to the PhD journey, but also motherhood and, the other things that we kind of navigate as women in this world. This idea of really finding yourself on this journey is so profound. Yes, you may have a lot of outputs. I talk a lot about outputs in PhD. Like, you may have published papers, or you may have your thesis, or you may have your doctor title, or you may have, like, these are all lovely outputs to have. But really the value is in the outcome, is in who have you become on this journey, and really looking at that journey. And for me, that journey has been very sacred. That journey has been very illuminating, on so many levels, transformative. Like, I can't even think of all the words, but it's been so profound that for me, the greatest outcome of my PhD is not the title, is not the thesis, none of that. It is actually who I became on this journey. And when you spend 8 years doing that, like my PhD, I was doing that for 8 years as well.
Yeah.
You've put in the reps. Like, you have put in the reps. You have navigated the highs, the lows, the in-betweens, and you have got the receipts, right? And so when you look back on that, when you reflect on that and reflect on how far you've come, like, you are so well placed to support and to encourage and to coach and to, mentor others who may be in that place and who may be, on the verge of giving up, or on the verge of quitting. Again, just like you, I see value sometimes in having to pivot and I'm not quit averse. I've quit things in my life as well. But I think that, being able to reflect on this and to see it through has been the greatest. I don't know. I can't even put words to the emotion that gives me. And I'm just so grateful to be at this place now, given where I started.
My best PhD moment was not even the PhD defense. It was the moment that I received a hard copy of my thesis in the mail, and my daughter was reading it in quotes, right? At this point, she's like 3 years old, I think. Yeah. And she's holding it up like she understands what is in there. And I captured that picture. And that remains the most precious moment in that time window. And yes, Defense Day, I dressed up. My family and friends were there, but it was like, I got the PhD and I got a healthy, amazing kid. I did it. I did it.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes, I can definitely relate to that. So if you could go back and whisper something to yourself in the first year of your PhD as a PhD student, what would you say?
You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to get validation externally, because this is a journey to yourself. This is about you. And yes, there will be research that needs to be done. There will be things that needs to be taken care of, but this is about you. So take everything as it comes. because that's the only way that you're going to get through it sane. And I suppose it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah, such wise words. So I'm going to twist that question and ask you, if you had to go back and whisper something to yourself in your first year as a mama, what would you say?
Every day, just tell yourself, these are the good old days. That first day, that first week, that first month, that first year, that first tooth, everything. These are the things that you're going to look back on when you are older and only your mind can travel and your body can't do much. That's if you're lucky to live long enough, right? So know that you will never be in the same place twice with your child. Everything is fleeting. Hold on to that, because that's what you will have to look back on later.
So true. I was listening to an audiobook that I'm listening to at the moment called Five Types of Wealth. And in that, there was a story that was shared about a mom who had three sons. And so I immediately related to this. I've got three sons as well. And, you know, her feedback was that, you know, we assume that we have our children in our lives for life, but her experience, you know, she said, maybe you've got them for 12, 14 years and then they want to go and enjoy their friends. They want to go out and have a life. They don't want to spend all the day and night with you. And then of course they become adults and they've got their own lives and their own careers and all that stuff. But the thing that really struck me with her story wasn't that. It was actually that, unfortunately, tragically, one of her sons died in a car accident.
Oh.
And I was walking to my car when I was listening to this. I was literally listening to this today. And I was walking to my car as I was listening. And when that part of her story was shared, I exclaimed out loud. Like, I've got AirPods in and I'm listening to listening to this, and I exclaim out loud, because it just, the weight of that information just hit me so hard. And it just reminded me that you really have to live every moment with your kids as if, like, not to say like, you know, you're thinking about, oh, I'm going to die tomorrow, but really just being present and cherishing those moments and building those memories, because we don't know what tomorrow holds for us or for our children or for the world. And so it's important that as mamas, as PhDs, as academics, as researchers, as professionals, that we don't lose sight of that we don't lose sight of, we don't get so caught up in chasing the next thing, pursuing the next thing, that we actually lose the gift of what we've got right in front of us right now. You know,
The only thing that you have guaranteed in this life is this moment.
yeah, absolutely.
Literally this moment. Past, forget about it. It's gone. What are you going to do about it, right? The future, who knows? Right now, literally, you and I are as young as we will ever be.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the end of this conversation, we will be older than we were when we were having a conversation right now, right?
So true.
And I think this is such an important thing, but it's also that I think sometimes we feel like, I also have another YouTube video, advice to my younger self as a university student. Now, life is happening right now.
Yes.
It's not like you can put it in a parking lot, take care of work and career and, I don't know, accolades, and then go and collect it from the parking lot. That's not how it works, right? Whatever relationship you have with your kids right now, however old they are, is actually setting the tone for what kind of relationship you will have with them as adults.
So true.
If you teach them that work is more important, then when you are older and they are working, their understanding is that work is more important, right? If you teach them that, you can miss a few birthdays every couple of years, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Guess what? you will be old and they will not show up for your birthday because this is what you have actually taught them.
Yeah.
So having come from a big family, I'm from a big family. I'm number 9 of 10.
Oh, wow.
And it's also one of the things that I can see that, our teenage years, they are always full of trouble. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
But when we get past those phases, we go back to how things were pre-teen, how we built things. And I think child psychologists actually says it's the first 3 years of a child's life that are most important. And I think these are the years that we are most absent because we are trying to make things work in many spheres, right? I try to keep my kid out of daycare, but I could only do it until she was 11 months old. That was also a huge achievement, because I know how hard it is when you're out here. But this is also why I'm grateful for my husband, because essentially he's had to step down his ambitions so that we can offer some level of security for our daughter, that she knows that there will always be someone. And yes, when I can, because I have a job that actually offers more flexibility. So, like sports, whatever, I will do those things. On Friday, people now know around 2 p.m., I shut things down because I have to take her to, these days she's into cricket. She was swimming the other time. And so this is what we do. But what they will remember is very different from what the rest of the world will remember. And what we are considering right now, being good employees, being good team players, in their perspective, then becomes just nights and nights of negligence.
Yeah. Gosh, this conversation has been just amazing. Like, there are no words to describe the wisdom, the insight that you have shared from your journey, but also just experience of life in general. Like, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I hope you feel the same way, by the way.
I could go on and on, but I'm like, we're like almost 2 hours now.
I know, but it's been incredible. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to chat with me and to share with my wonderful audience of scholarly mamas. And so if any of them want to find you online, where can they find you?
Oh, actually, I think it's very, very good to go to my YouTube page if they are scholarly mamas and they just want to get to the academic writing, because what I try to do with my material on YouTube is not just to give people a checklist of things to do, but I would like to empower them so that they don't keep coming back for more, right? So, and I think if you are at this stage, you have multiple responsibilities, it's in your interest to understand some of these processes and internalize them for yourself so that you go on autopilot at a certain stage with some of these processes. That's going to be the most efficient thing. So a lot of people misunderstand, again, academic writing. Just show me what to do and it's fine. No. You need to understand why you are doing that for you to actually grow in your academic journey. So my YouTube videos are actually built to not just give you lists, but empower you so that you start to internalize it and you get it. And to reassure you that you are either not crazy or you're not the only crazy one, because we all go through the things that you are going through. And then also they can find me on TikTok, but this is where I really do the soundbite advice that tends to resonate with lower level students, so the masters and undergrads, because they just want to know in a minute what the structure of my introduction and then they're going to go off. So really the YouTube page is going to be best. And yes, I do have a soft spot for moms, academic moms. So it might be good to drop me a private message on TikTok. Unfortunately, I'm not on other platforms. And then if it's something that I can help with and it's within my power to do it, I'm going to do it. And for women of Global South origin, we have the Southern Women Academics Network. We have a LinkedIn page now. Not much is happening there, but if you go on LinkedIn and you find the Southern Women Academics Network, and you say you would like to connect, we can bring you into our small group on WhatsApp. At the moment, it's WhatsApp, but we hope we can make it a bit more, I don't know, something where we don't have to have your number, and then we can connect. But it's true. Whichever way you slice it, the PhD journey is going to be a lonely journey because, as I said before, there are places only you can go, and it's going to be mostly in your mind. You are dealing with a problem that no one else has dealt with before, so no one has any of the answers that you're looking for. But you can be lonely in company. You can be in the company of similar others who can understand what you're going through. It's so hard to explain to our families what the heck we're doing. They think it's an extended master's. I used to have family members say, why don't you just write your exams? No, it doesn't work like that.
No.
Oh, you're not finishing again. When are you finishing? I don't know, But when you are in the company of people who actually get it, there's something that's so energizing and empowering about it.
Absolutely.
And it's going to help you a lot. We write in community a lot within Swan, and I hope more people can set this up. I found this out from someone who set up a writing community in my own university. So we have a women's writing group for the whole university, thanks to her. And she allowed us to use her blueprint for the Swan writing sessions, and she's happy if we pass it on. So maybe you can just get in touch to ask me, how do I set something like that up? And you're on your way. But I do want to hear from people, and I do want to help them find that happy, because it's gonna be transformational, not just for them, but the world around them and the future generations that are gonna rely on that tiny bit of knowledge that they create. You never know what impact it's gonna have.
So true. Thank you so much for coming on the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast and sharing all of this wisdom and all of these insights. I am forever grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, please head over to mrsmummyphd.com or scholarlymamas.com. If you want to do your PhD well without sacrificing yourself or those you love dearest, then you need your hands on all the ways that we can work together to transform your journey of scholarly motherhood from one of overwhelm, disillusionment and burnout to one of scholarly joy and purposeful success. Make sure you head over to mrsmummyphd.com. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I cannot wait to work with you. Remember, Mama, these are our journeys of becoming.